And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? Further forward? Yes. Wait? Yes.
Well, it's great to be here. And I've been wanting to ask this question from a teacher-healer perspective. Where we're holding our resistance and it's showing up as illness, is there any...
it's one way.
Excuse me?
It's one way that it shows up.
So it shows up...
Shows up in a bad mood.
Bad mood. But it could show up in diabetes, or it could show up in wrinkles, or it could show up in other ways. I wanted to know, is there any personal guidance we're supposed to be gaining from that in helping direct our thoughts to be more specific in what we want? So, for instance, would something with our hands mean something different than with our legs?
Well, there are those who believe that as they study manifestations. Let's start in another place. The way to recognize resistance is either pre-manifested or post-manifested. Pre-manifested meaning emotions, post-manifested meaning manifestation. And it's fair even to call an emotion maybe a manifestation because it certainly is something that you're feeling. But there's a difference between something that you're feeling ornery about and something that you're feeling really sick about, as in disease. So in either case, both emotions and manifestations are indications of vibration. So the better you're consistently feeling in terms of emotion, then the more thriving you're doing in terms of manifestation. And it's not just in avoiding illness. We're not just talking about avoiding being sick. We're talking about being robustly well, you see. And the correlation is dramatic. So when you get really sensitive to your own emotions, you can start noticing. In fact, it's a very good thing when you begin to notice the correlation between what you've been thinking and feeling and what's manifesting. So there are some who have interviewed people or known people who have noticed the correlation between particular attitudes and particular illnesses. And with some accuracy to some extent. In other words, if you just have general resistance, then your manifestations are usually general. There is nothing more pointedly evident than a feeling of resentment. In other words, someone harboring long-term resentment often experiences very specific destructive illnesses. But we're not really interested, because we do not believe that it is really to anyone's advantage to try to, after the fact, once an illness has shown itself in terms of manifested form, to try to pin specific thoughts to it. We think it is a much more practical and ultimately comfortable transition from resistance into non-resistance, the less attention that you give to it, and to tack it to something specific, sort of, it's like nailing your foot to the floor, it holds you back. But there is no question that the emotions that you feel, especially those that you've been harboring for quite a long period of time, do show up in specific paths of least resistance. It's important also, though, to note that the path of least resistance is unique to the individual. Unless you start talking to one another or reading books about it and carving out a path of lesser resistance because of something that you've learned from someone else. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
In other words, if we were to really get on a rant about how a specific emotion would cause such and such, then you would begin to see more and more people experiencing it, because attention to a subject always causes the creation of it, always. Did we get to where you want to be, or is there something more?